Okay, let's get this started. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. I've been really excited and eagerly anticipating doing these spaces ever since I arrived back from El Salvador a few days back, but the jet lag has really been playing with me. Funnily enough, I didn't get any jet lag when I arrived in El Salvador, but on the way back, it got me. I guess it must be those cocktails by the poolside that have the miraculous effect. Look, today we're going to have a really open, frank, and really an optimistic discussion also about El Salvador. It's a country, as we all know, has adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. And we're going to give you some perspective on, first of all, hopefully Roman Martinez will join us, who is a local doing real work on the ground in El Zonte, Bitcoin Beach. And the crypto couple have also joined us, and they were very active over about a couple of weeks, going to all the merchants, talking to employees, bar staff, waiters, hotels, uh, pupusa stalls, everything really, and just getting involved and seeing what adoption was like on an operational level, just to the everyday people that you would meet in various shops, what level of adoption was there. And also Stacy, and we've also got Max as well joining us. And we know they've been doing a power of work there ever since moving to El Salvador. They might be able to give us some insight into some policy, but also more importantly, from my perspective, is um, directionally what kind of change they've observed since they've moved there. Because I've only spent a week in El Salvador, and that's one data point. You don't really see anything changing. It's like a butterfly landing on a tree. You have no notion of what's going on over a longer time period. But just in that one week that I was there, I did see quite a lot of construction on infrastructure projects. And so let's make no mistake about what El Salvador is. It is a rugged, beautiful country. And I know it's quite cliche to say this every time you come from a country you've had a good time, but the people are adorably warm, welcoming, open hearted. We had absolutely zero issues regarding safety. And the irony of that is, whenever I mentioned to anybody that I was going to El Salvador or that I was in El Salvador, the first thing that they would raise is it safe? Now, I just want to share with you my experience. It's only anecdotal, but I did not have a single instance in which to even think about my safety. Now, that might be specific to me, but I was also with, other people and not just men as well. So there were women with us. And I think that experience was shared by everybody. And we would walk in back streets that were not even lit, very dark, coming across strangers. We didn't even have to initiate anything. Everyone would say hello, hola, without question, almost without exception. This to me is, it's not something that I really expected. I didn't really know what to expect from El Salvador, other than the superficial impressions that a lot of people do have. And so it warmed my heart to be received so openly and so readily. And of course, we had a tremendous local experience as well, thanks to the various connections we've made from Twitter and through friends and whatnot. But I had the most incredible experience there, beyond, over and above beyond what I expected. And it's not just because of Bitcoin, it's because of the society that I got to experience and observe. And directionally, because El Salvador seemingly is making quite a lot of progress, I think that momentum is much more important than the relative level of wealth or underdevelopment that you might observe coming from a wealthier country. Make no mistake about it, there's a lot of basic infrastructure that needs to be fixed up. And from what I can see, it is being invested in. That may take some time, but directionally, I think it's clear from people who have conveyed their experience of having been there from 6 months ago or 12 months ago. There's a lot of progress being made on that front as well. So this wasn't just being positive only because people were using Bitcoin. It was also seeing the progress in the country actually rise up, and there was a genuine excitement that I could feel in and around the place. There was a lot of happiness. We went to a beach to do some surfing, and the happiness amongst people was palpable, over and above what you might just expect from people on holiday at the beach or enjoying a nice warm day. Now, that might just be a cultural thing. I don't know if it's improved in a year, but, we've got Roman hopefully coming to join us, and Max and Stacy have been there a year. They will share with us their experience, and also the crypto couple. So without further ado, let me introduce Max, Stacy, and Carla. Welcome, guys, to my spaces. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me.
Hi, thanks. It's great to be here.
So, Max, I did mention, and Stacy as well, I was only there for a week, but in the year, almost the year that you've been there, what are the things that have stood out from an improvement point of view? What are the things that you have observed noticeably changing just from living there in that time?
Well, in September, it'll be 1 year since Bitcoin was made legal tender in El Salvador. And you have the impact of Bitcoin felt across the economy and across society. So the economy is up 10.8% year over year. Tourism's up 88%. And looks going forward, the economy, the numbers look very impressive. And then on the social front, of course, as you mentioned, El Salvador is now the safest country in Latin America, and this would make sense when you make Bitcoin legal tender, because Bitcoin demonetizes violence and it monetizes peace and love. So I think the war against the gangs, et cetera, that's a direct result of making Bitcoin legal tender, because Bitcoin changes you. You don't change Bitcoin. And one of those changes is a change where you understand that peace and love triumph over violence and hate, because if you have unconfiscatable money, violence is demonetized, because there's no way to get that Bitcoin if it's unconfiscatable. So you see that on the ground, and people are happy. They're smiling, as you point out. So it's having a profound impact, and it's just getting started.
So there's a key policy plank behind. I believe in July that for the first time they didn't have any murders in the entire country, which is an amazing statistic. But the key policy plank behind that was the rounding up and jailing of tens of thousands of gang members. You mentioned that the people are palpably happier. In your experience, what are some of the sort of daily improvements in their lives as a result of these gang members not being on the streets then?
Well, the gangs were tying up about $6 billion a year. This is a $30 billion economy, so that's a big improvement. The 5,000 or so pupusa sellers on the street were paying up to 50% of their daily income to extortionists, to gang members. So you are removing that from the equation, and you're putting that right back into the pockets of the people in the economy, and it's having an immediate impact. They just have summer holidays there. It's a huge weekend. It's the safest weekend in probably the history of the country, and everyone was on the streets having a great time. And so it has an immediate economic impact that's very big, very, very large. And so you see that immediately. And the infrastructure is being built out. The roads are being built out to the east, to Bitcoin City, what will be Bitcoin City. A lot of the property developers are obviously coming into the country. Roads and bridges are being built or repaired. During a recent storm, the floods overwhelmed the irrigation, not the irrigation, but the water systems. And so they put out a massive countrywide effort to clean out all of these drainage systems that had been left untended for years, and they gave themselves a massive upgrade. So the people in El Salvador are just taking matters into their own hands, and they are upgrading their country every day, every month. We had our friend Jimmy Song in. He hadn't been there for a few months. He said he noticed just in the months that he wasn't there, just the whole building boom that's going on, and things are being upgraded, and you can just see it on the street. It's happening in real time.
Yeah, so for those of you who are living in more developed countries, when you go there, I don't want to come across as describing a utopia that's complete and ready. This is a country very much on a journey towards fulfilling its promise. Okay, you're going to see muddy streets. You're going to see street lights that are not switched on, etc., broken altogether. You're going to see a lot of signs of underinvestment, dysfunction. But what I'm trying to point out, and in asking Max for some of the details, is the direction in which that country is going won't be obvious to you unless you ask someone who's been there a little while or been there at least a couple of times with some space, space between visits. And so that's a really good perspective to get. Stacy, if I can just call you up on stage as well. You, excuse me, safety is a particular concern for a lot of people who might consider coming to El Salvador. Now, you had a particular experience of taking some Bitcoin to distribute in the community. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you want to share that with us?
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you about walking into some communities. But first, I do want to say, and I think it's really important to understand, is that one thing I tweet all the time is Bitcoin plus Bukele equals boom times for El Salvador. And I can't stress that enough, the role of President Bukele in being an extraordinary leader. Bitcoin changes. You don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. And the same thing I could say for President Bukele. Some people say, oh, Stacy, you must be on his payroll or you work for the government. But in fact, what I do is I serve the president. And I think I serve the president by doing the stuff that we've done there, because the guy is obviously, everybody can see he's charismatic and confident. But the thing about him, and when we know him, is that he's incredibly humble and profoundly ethical. And that is what you see. Those are the results you see on the ground in El Salvador today. That is why you see these boom times, is because the ethical nature of his rule and him as a person. Now, what I've seen and what I've experienced when, many people will have accused me over the past few months of that somehow I'm walking around with state security. But in fact, as you've seen me there, we have no state security around us. I walk on my own at all hours of the night. And in fact, when we walked into, when Bitfinex tasked me with finding ways to distribute the funds, about $2 million, depends on, Bitcoin prices going up and down. But when they tasked me with finding ways to distribute the money in the best way that would, for the maximum benefit for Salvadoran people, and for that vision that President Bukele has for Bitcoin in El Salvador, I took note of the naysayers. I took note of the fight to stop the plunder, to stop the gang violence, to end that extortion, to end the mass exodus from El Salvador, to bring the Salvadoran diaspora back to their country where they belong. I looked on Twitter for the names of the towns. I was not being advised by anybody but myself. I went onto Twitter. I looked for the most dangerous areas. I saw over and over Soyapango, Ilopango, and Apopa listed as places that there were lots of gang arrests and stuff like that. Now, first we went to Ilopango, then we went to Soyapango. Those are two areas in El Salvador which had a lot of gang violence. We went in there with, money on a moon wallet to go distribute. But it was Apopa in particular, where our own crew that we were with were too afraid to go in there. And they thought we were insane to go in there. But we walked in there. We announced it the day before. I had about $200,000 on a hot wallet. I walked in there. We announced it. The streets were lined with people waiting for us to arrive. We arrived at this bridge connecting the communities called San Francisco and Los Angeles. I had seen a photo of the bridge, and there was a huge amount of litter under it. So I thought, well, that's something we could do to improve the community of all around us, right? That we see, as Max was pointing out, that, people coming together to clean the beaches, to clean the rivers, to do that. So I, went there to offer anybody who wanted to come clean, $600, which is like 2 months' pay, to come spend the day with us cleaning up the litter. Anyway, we went in there, and people genuinely seemed like liberated They seemed like people that had been freed of a horrible situation where they were an extorted, imprisoned people who were not free. They did not have liberty. They did not have the right to property, and they did not have the right to life. The bridge that we cleaned up, one of the first things we were told is, oh, this bridge is famous for its murders and rapes. So, Bastiat would say the role of government is to protect the people for their right to life, liberty, and property. And that I saw in Apopa. I felt totally safe. I mean, I hope tourism arrives there. We painted an amazing mural there, a beautiful mural with a positive message. And I hope people go there because it is really cute. Loads of cute little tiny, restaurant pupuserias out of the front of people's homes. And people seemed liberated there. And I felt good about that. I felt good seeing people that were, seemed to have just been given some freedoms.
So I just want to point out one thing. They were feeling liberated because of the absence of the gangs who had ruled over them and extorted them. And that if you can just imagine that you're running a business or you're going to work and to pass through somewhere or to drive through somewhere or to even just open your doors as a business, you knew that you had to come up with a certain amount of money every single week or month or however it was collected, what sort of pressure that would put upon you, and the level of injustice and the indignation you would feel of knowing that you had to pay people like this who do nothing but threaten and extort you. Suddenly, that's just been wiped away. It's kind of like, living in a house with abusive parents and one day they just disappear and you're not being abused anymore. That level of freedom is incredibly liberating. Sorry, go on, Stacy.
And I want to point out something that Jimmy Song had said and noted about El Salvador or anywhere, is when you see barbed wire and fences protecting you from the population, that's a high level of distrust in an economy. And what you saw there were like Salvadoran people who were with us, our translator and our film crew. They were afraid to go in there. They're Salvadorans. They were afraid of other Salvadorans because they didn't want to be harmed by those people. When you have that sort of level of distrust, I spoke to a Bloomberg journalist who said he wanted to go see the mural that we had painted, but he was told not to go there, that it's too dangerous. So, that's the sort of that level of distrust, that cycle of distrust and fear of each other is no way to, that sort of injustice, that's what it does. It degrades an entire society and makes the economy difficult to grow. So if you remove that threat, if you remove the danger, if you remove the plunder, I think you're starting to see the results. You're seeing the spiraling up. The momentum, as you mentioned, the momentum has changed. It's becoming more optimistic and positive, and people are returning. And that's the sign that it's working.
So normally, a population that's been traumatized by instability, violence, and not that long ago, a civil war as well, would be quite distrusting of foreigners coming in. And I am visibly a foreigner, so were my companions, the crypto couple. We are visibly foreign to that country just by sheer height alone. But they were so open and welcoming and friendly. I mean, without exception, we did not have a single occasion to think, oh, that person was a bit rude or anything like it. It was nothing but warmth, manners, welcoming, very polite people, almost on the front foot to welcome you. And they don't even know you. You're just passing strangers in the street. So I find, given the context of what you explained and what some of our friends on the ground explained to us about, the long past civil war, and also, the threat or living under the gang violence as well, that they were, despite all of that and the lingering distrust and trauma around personal security, that they were still very open and welcoming to foreigners. So, I thought that that's something that people should keep in mind, that there's something about the culture. I only have a limited experience of it, but Stacy and Max have been there for a while now, and they seem to corroborate that. They're very welcomed everywhere they go. Their safety hasn't been an issue, and they're very identifiable as well. So I'm anonymous, but Max and Stacy certainly are not.
I have to say, when we walk through San Benito, like every single car beeps, they stop, they shout at us, they say, "Hey, Max and Stacy." So it's not like everybody knows we're Bitcoiners walking around. Like they're not I don't feel unsafe in any way.
I wanted to ask Roman. Roman, are you there, mate?
Yes,
Welcome to my spaces, buddy. How are you?
thank you for having me, and a pleasure.
It's my pleasure to have you on. So, as you've been hearing, we've just discussed Max and Stacy's experience of the changes they've identified going through the country. Can you tell us a little bit about the work you're doing? So, Roman runs Hope House at El Zonte Beach, which is Bitcoin Beach. And this is kind of like an education community outreach center. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing and the progress as a community that's been made in helping people understand Bitcoin, become familiar with Bitcoin, and accept and use Bitcoin as well?
Yeah, sure. And first, I want to say thanks to the amazing work that Stacy and Max are doing. Is incredible. I think many Salvadorians feel like so grateful for all their effort and work and time, energy that they're putting to help our country. So, thank you. And yeah, we are a team. We are a big team with Mike Peterson, Jorge Valenzuela, Irving, and me. Just that some people just know me, but we're a big team behind Bitcoin Beach and Clubhouse. So we are in our community. Like a few years ago, the only two dreams or the only two opportunities that we had here were like leave the country, leave the country trying to get to the USA and working there, get more money and send the money back here to help our families, or stay here and being a fisherman or a farmer if you live in another side of the highway. So and everyone say like fighting for your dreams, you can do it, but no one give you the tools and the knowledge that you need to really do that here. So this is where Hope House become like uh, trying to give those tools and knowledge that the kids need here to fighting for their dreams here. And we have been focused giving them those tools like English classes, computer classes, a scholarship for the university, transportation to the school, surfing, soccer, and like we have been focused on empowerment the young people here. And like 3 years ago we started using Bitcoin as a tool here in El Sante to teach one of the things that no one teach you around the world, that is money. So and everything like our community, I think everyone that have been here have been seeing like the big impact that Bitcoin Beach or El Sante have been having, like people here have hope for the first time in their life. Kids here are dreaming again to stay here, because there are tools, there are opportunities, and Bitcoin is one of those tools that is helping our communities, helping our country, is bringing like amazing people here. The smarter people in the entire world are coming here. So one of the things that I'm shocked, and I'm excited to see it, is that for years and years, people just have been dreaming to leave the country. Now I see people from all over the world, like dreaming to coming here. I see families here purchasing land, buying houses here, and seeing El Salvador as the place that they want to raise their kids, and that's amazing and exciting for us. And I think when the president made Bitcoin a legal tender in our country, it gives to not just the Salvadorian, but everyone around the world one place to be exciting for the future. Because I think we all want that, right? We want to have things exciting in our life, things that want to live. And El Salvador is that place, where you can come and you feel that energy. You were talking about a little bit about that. You feel that something is moving. You feel that the future is building now, and the future looks great, and we're exciting.
That's really good to hear. I certainly felt that energy on the ground when I was with you in El Salvador. Now, I know a lot of people are really interested from a personal point of view to visit El Salvador. What's it like? I promise you we're going to get into all of those details later. But just before we get into that, I want to ask Max and Stacy, because they're a little bit more involved in the high level stuff. Max or Stacy, either one of you want to chime in. I'm interested in what is happening at the macro level for the development of the country, specifically from foreign investment. Is there anything that you can share with us on that front? And I know some of this might be sensitive, but so if you can't answer, that's okay too. But is there anything you can share with us that's happening on that front?
Stacy?
Yeah, I'll quickly say there's a lot we can't talk about yet, but I think the most important thing to understand is what I said earlier, is that President Bukele is very profoundly ethical. And I think that's what you've seen with that his confidence in executing the Bitcoin law and how it has remained a Bitcoin only country. And that's the most important thing, because it's easy to be unethical. It's very difficult to stand up to, all the free money and the cantillionaire sort of shitcoin class that comes in and can degrade the entire project and the economy. So I think that's the most important thing to look for in terms of macro, is that he does listen to good advice, and including myself. So I think, he's remained firm on Bitcoin, and that is the most important thing. I think looking forward for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, I think you're going to see the results of that.
Max, do you have anything to add to
that? No.
Okay, thank you.
I'll also add, there are some big investments coming in. Those will be coming in soon once these new securities laws are passed, which should be soon. I think a lot of people in the mainstream media, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, say the Bitcoin project has failed, but I think you're going to see soon, because I think what President Bukele calls his Bitcoin project is, the policy is one of economic liberty. That's what he calls it himself. So I think that the economic liberty had to be secured for all Salvadorans, not just the people living in San Benito or Bitcoin Beach. And I think he's done that. And I think you're going to see, now that the foundation of liberty has been established, I think you're going to see what the foreign direct investment, where I know is a lot coming in. And I just say, be patient. You're going to see it very soon. You're going to see the volcano bond. You're going to see the securities laws. You're going to see that things are only just getting started.
It certainly feels that way. Now, two of the most visible aspects of, I guess, national policy have been the volcano bonds, and the other one, there was quite a lot of FUD about the potential for El Salvador to default on their bonds. Now, we know since then they've come out and they've said, well, we're just going to buy our bonds back then, and they've gone through the roof. On the volcano bonds, is there anything, any progress on that front? Because I know a lot of people constantly ask me, and they've wanted me to ask about that in this spaces as well. What's happening with that? Is there anything that we know on that front that we could share today?
Well, the volcano bonds are ready to go, and this is really part of a more sweeping introduction of a whole bunch of new legislation that's coming through, and that's going to open the way for the bonds. The demand for the bonds is there. There are people with money dedicated and allocated for the bonds. So they're ready. The cash is there. They're just waiting to get through this legislative process.
So it's not a matter of, a lot of people speculated that it's a matter of market conditions, and because it's a bear market, somehow that impacted the issuance and perhaps even demand for the bond. But that's not the case, Max.
No, the bond is oversubscribed for it, and they just want the president prioritize what he's doing with the gangs. Again, it's like this idea that what they're experiencing is like after World War II. People were appreciative of those who fought World War II and beat down the bad guys. And there was VE Day, Victory in Europe Day. This is like what it's like in El Salvador. It's Victory in El Salvador Day. They've beaten the gangs. Anybody who's against bad guys would be for El Salvador's triumph against gangs. If I'm shocked that anybody would see it any other way, but a lot of things shock me.
I think the war analogy you made is quite apt in that, in our own countries, if we were in a time of war, we would make allowances for the government to take certain actions. But we're applying peacetime rules in developed and very stable, functional governments, and we're applying that to El Salvador. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't ask questions of any administration. That's for sure. But one recent Spaces was particularly critical of El Salvador. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I question the people behind that. Their integrity and who's pulling their strings, because any human being would naturally rejoice in the idea of the good guys winning against the bad guys. If that's not true, then let's not go to Top Gun movies or Star Wars movies or enjoy any of triumphant American culture and literature of the past 50 years either. And let's just all start to, reward. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. So I really question the people who are on the side of the terrorists in this case. I don't know why they would be on the side of the terrorists, but obviously terrorists are popular in some sectors.
I think, Chimbetta would be good at responding to this because he grew up there. And one of the first things that really changed my perception, it really opened up to President Bukele, was a conversation I had with Chimbetta where he talked about growing up and that he was always used to loss because his friends, his family always left. They were always leaving to escape the situation with the gangs and with therefore the economy in El Salvador. And now there's hope and they're returning. So I genuinely don't understand, as Max doesn't, why people are against. Have they ever walked into a popa and go see the faces of these liberated people? When you see the photos from Victory in Europe Day, when you see the photos of Paris, when my grandfather marched in with Patton's army, when they marched in there and the people were throwing roses at them along the Champs-Élysées, around the Arc de Triomphe, that's what you see when you walk into a popa.
Yeah, I think that the double standards of applying standards in peacetime in a functional, stable country to applying it to an unstable, borderline dysfunctional or previously dysfunctional in a circumstance of high level of dysfunction as well, from when you talk about gangs and their extortion and the threat of violence to everyday people.
Are we talking about the U.S. now? Who are we talking about?
Well, touche. But I'm talking about the general perception that people have, the framework that people have when they're addressing their circumstances and applying those standards to El Salvador. I'm just making comment that there are double standards that are being applied and not any allowances to the circumstances of El Salvador.
So if I understand your comment correctly, the people who are okay with fecal defecation, open defecation in San Francisco, murder rates climbing in cities all over America, completely unsafe to be in tons and tons of cities in America right now, they maybe should shut their fucking mouth and not comment on situations they have no idea about. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, thanks.
Was there any doubt that we're in agreement, Max?
I just wanted to be clear.
Okay. All right. So yeah, look, we've made that point. Look, there are circumstances in El Salvador that have required policies that a lot of people perhaps wouldn't tolerate elsewhere. But what if you were in the similar circumstances? Would you tolerate them then? Or would you have more sympathy to the criticisms that are being made at the moment? If you have a look at what's happening on the ground. Sorry, this is rhetorical. Max, this is rhetorical.
Is the Patriot Act still in place?
Max, this is rhetorical. I'm on your side, Max.
Patriot Act. What Who's what the kettle calling the pot black here? Again, the criticisms coming from the worst human rights abusers in the world are in the United States. They need to shut the fuck up. This is atrocious double standard. It's appalling. It's embarrassing. As an American, I'm embarrassed by it. That's why I live in El Salvador.
Yeah, it will persist though, and as long as we shed light on the framework that's being used and those double standards, then we have a way of dealing with them, then don't we?
I like the way actually the U.S. a lot of the commentators are like, right now because of the arrest of the gang members, the incarceration rate in El Salvador is almost as high as America's, and they're like, well, yeah, because they're all American. All these the gangs were literally sent from California to El Salvador, and the rate of incarceration, nevertheless, is not as high as the U.S. by your own standards, by your own metrics. But yeah, again, like walk into a popa and go talk to the women running the pupuserias. Go talk to them. Like anybody can do it. I did it. If you're too scared to do it, then that's your fucking problem. Go talk to the people themselves.
My understanding is some of the most prominent critics refuse to go to El Salvador. Is that right, Stacy?
I did invite Alex. I like Alex Gladstone.
I like Alex a lot as well.
I consider him a friend, and I think he's wrong on El Salvador. And I've asked him to please come to a popa with me, just the two of us, and I'll go show him. Like, let's go talk to those women who run the pupuserias and ask them what they feel. Do they feel their human rights situation at the moment is better today, or was it better, 3 months ago or 3 years ago? Like, how do they feel in terms of the progress of their own situation? And everybody they know, all their family, all their friends, go ask them how they feel. I think he'll find something different from what the, you see that in all over the world. Like, there's always 14 families. There are always oligarchs. There are always powerful people. There are always contillionaires. There's always a United Fruit Company in every country around the world. And they always, they're often very powerful people, and they control a lot of media, and they have a bigger voice, and they have access to politicians and legislators and things like that. So they do have a lot of power, and they cry very hard when the populist leader listens to the people instead, and how dare they listen to these like poor people that want their share of the economy back. And that's what you're seeing, I think. And I think, there are some people who have a louder voice. They're able to amplify beyond what the actual message is in El Salvador itself. Like the vast majority of people, I think you see it with the polling numbers from all sorts of polling organizations around the world, that the population is happy that they have their right to life, liberty, and property back.
I think we see the same thing in the financial press where, the people who are writing these FUD stories about El Salvador also have particular posture, particular interests to espouse and to defend. And I think we're seeing that also in the case of human rights criticisms. For the record, I like Alex. I support his work. It's just we have a small disagreement on his position or his organization's position on El Salvador. I hope he gets a chance to see it and experience what's happening on the ground, and like you've described, the feeling of liberation and the relief of being able to go about your day-to-day business. That's also a human right as well. So I wanted to move on, and thanks very much for your insight. I really, really do appreciate that. It's something that, not a lot of us, even having been there for a week, can experience. There's only so much time that you have when you're over for a short trip. But, that experience of yours that you've described, telling people in advance that you're going with a huge sum of Bitcoin on a hot wallet to give it away, and you were so warmly received without even the slightest hint of any violence whatsoever, and the community just embraced you. And that's also indicative of my experience there. Now, I want to bring up, is it Carlo or Walker on the crypto couple? I want to bring the crypto couple up because we shared a particularly good experience over a week going to a number of different merchants, and the experience was almost unanimous. If they didn't have a Bitcoin wallet, downloaded, they all knew what Bitcoin was. And so I just want to set the framework for this discussion about adoption. Bitcoin has been made legal tender by the government. That does not mean that it is absolutely ubiquitous and 100% adoption. What it means is that the initiative has been launched. And so a key measure to me when you've just launched a project is, do your potential customers know about it? Now, from anecdotally, having been in the country and spoken to many, many dozens of people in bars, hotels, restaurants, and all the rest of that, the awareness was near 100%. They all knew what Bitcoin was. And all we had to do was just explain to them, if they didn't have a wallet, download your wallet and we'll give you some Bitcoin. Now, Carla and Walker were tipping them almost everywhere we go. Are you there, Carla?
Yes, we're both here.
Oh, hi, guys. Welcome. So do you want to share your experience of approaching a lot of the staff that we encountered and people regarding Bitcoin and potentially tipping them in Bitcoin?
Definitely. So to start off, we decided to go to El Salvador simply out of curiosity. We saw what was being said in the news. We saw what was being said on Bitcoin Twitter, and we were like, you know what, let's just go see this for ourselves, because that's the best way we're going to actually figure out the truth. And it was actually stunning to see how many, I think, we tipped probably over 30 people. Maybe one didn't accept Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, and overall it was Chimbera, it was Rivas who wasn't quite ready for it yet, but that's because he didn't feel tech savvy enough. But we'll bring him around to it next time we're there for adopting Bitcoin. But yeah, to echo what Carlos said and just expand a little bit, everyone we talked to obviously knew what Bitcoin was. It is ubiquitous in terms of knowledge of its existence, knowledge of its use in day to day. That was, perhaps not as ubiquitous as some may believe. That being said, every single person you talk to, the vast majority had wallets set up already. I would say definitely the majority of them either using Chivo or Bitcoin Beach Wallet. Which was also very popular. People like that you have that also dollar sats capability in there as well. And even if they didn't have the wallet set up yet, you could tell that for those few people who hadn't set it up, there was perhaps a little trepidation, not knowing, who to ask or who can help you do that. But then as soon as you just walk them through it, and Carla speaks better Spanish than I do, but mine's getting there. But even in my broken Spanish, being able to walk them through these simple steps, because it's not hard, and showing them, oh, look, this isn't something scary. This is easy. But everybody who we talked to was happy to accept a tip in Bitcoin. We never wanted to force it, always making it an option to say, would you like it? We can give you cash instead. But if you'd like Bitcoin, we'd like to give it to you. And everyone was happy to accept that. Carl also conducted a few interviews with other local people. We like to talk to people, and so we talked to everybody we possibly could. And the experience was really, not to sound cliched, it was eye-opening.
And to see the smile and look in people's eyes, like, not to be cheesy, when they received one of these Bitcoin tips, it's like, that's what it's going to take. More people like us, tourists, who are going to come and say, hey, I want to tip you in Bitcoin. Like, that's going to be like, okay, maybe Bitcoin is being more used. Maybe it is cool that my country is the first to do this, especially from a merchant perspective.
Yeah, just speaking of country first, when we were in with Chimbera talking to these kids at one of the schools, that was an amazing experience. You see these kids a little bit shy at first. They're explaining how to what is Bitcoin, why is it important, for El Salvador. Again, we chimed in a little bit in our broken Spanish, but then we started just working with the kids. And Chimbera and his team, they do a truly amazing work there. The way these kids can see, especially somebody like Roman, who is from El Zonte, he is staying in El Salvador, like he said, because people are staying again. They're excited. People are coming here. Seeing those kids light up, and then how quickly it clicked for them. And then how quickly, they didn't need us to show them anything anymore. They were going back and forth between each other, comparing notes. How does this work? How does that work? Dissecting the Bitcoin Beach wallet, trying to figure out every little thing they could. It was really impressive. And you think about these kids in El Salvador in a mountain school who, come from all sorts of different circumstances. But let's say, it's fair to say that the average American kid is much better off. And yet the average American kid isn't learning these things. The average American kid isn't being exposed to these things in the same way, and certainly not by the same, sort of teachers with these passions. And so seeing that jumpstart for them, this is a chance for the developing world to outstrip the developed, so-called developed, let's say.
And that's also something where it's amazing that smartphones have, allowed us to do this, right? Like one of the first questions that the students were asked was, do you have a smartphone? And almost every single hand shot their hand up in the air. Now these kids have a version of pocket change that, they didn't have before. They didn't have allowances, and they're going to go home and say, hey, this is what I learned at school today. That's going to get their parents interested. I mean, it really is this ripple effect, but it's not going to happen on its own. And when you see these articles that are flooding like, oh, this is the experiment's a failure, it's too soon. It hasn't even been 1 year. Adoption is happening, but it's going to be a process.
I mean, it's hilarious to me when you see the kind of mainstream media going after adoption in El Salvador. I mean, literally from the day one, from day zero, you saw articles in Reuters and New York Times saying, the failed experiment of, Bukele's Bitcoin adoption. I mean, literally from the day that it started, they literally didn't even give it a chance. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, you thought that a revolutionary new global monetary asset was just going to be adopted when you snapped your fingers overnight and it'd be easy? Like, my God, it took us 3 years to put together a COVID website in the US, and we have the best funded government money can buy.
And another thing that we heard, and this is something where in America, we're used to transacting for the most part digitally and storing money in our bank accounts. When we're talking about education, something that's, something that we overlook is it's not physical cash. It's not money. I can't touch it. That's going to make me maybe a little bit more hesitant about it. So these are all sorts of things that we're trying to address and that only education can address. And it's just going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, education and getting your butts down to El Salvador. Chimbera asked us a question after dinner one night. He said, see all this back and forth on Twitter about what's a Bitcoin maximalist. And, at that point, I'd had a few too many Supremas to give a clear answer. But then a couple of days later, Chimbera was nice enough to have us into his home. We were having dinner again, and I, all of a sudden just snapped to me. I was like, a Bitcoin maximalist just spends sats, because going out and putting yourself in these places and going out there and doing the work like Max and Stacy do and just spending and sending sats, that's how you drive adoption. That is the best way. So it was a pleasure to be there, and a pleasure to meet all of you guys as well.
So what Carla and Walker are talking about is we had an outreach day to a school where we spoke to probably 40 or 50 teenagers, and they were so attentive, so eager to hear what we had to say, and also respectful of their headmaster who was telling them to be that way. And so what we did was we gave them all $5. And we had different groups to organize that. And then once they did that, we said, okay, well, if you can set up an invoice, we'll give you another $5. And what happened was they all started lining up, and we started instructing a few students on how to raise an invoice. It's just a few taps, and you put in some numbers. It's really, really simple. And then what happened was we didn't have to instruct any more students, because they had seen us instruct the students in front of them. And so now the people waiting in line, they already had their invoices ready by the time they came to the front of the queue. And so, using the Lightning Network was just so simple and easy for these teenagers who probably never used a Bitcoin wallet before that day that we gave them some Bitcoin. And so adoption can be as simple as just showing someone how to receive some Bitcoin, and suddenly, they got these smiles on their faces because, $10 for some of these kids. I asked Roman, how much pocket money would these kids get in a week or a month? And that turned out to be a really naive question without realizing, because a lot of these kids come from, so we were up on the mountain where the school is located, and these kids come from down in the villages and the farms. They don't have any pocket money. They're just living and surviving, and all they have is their families, subsistence, and education is something that, particularly about Bitcoin, but also some of them actually did have a little bit of broken English as well. That's what they've got. They don't have any pocket money. So for them to receive $10 in Bitcoin was really illuminating for them. They were so happy to do that. And so hopefully that sparks a little bit of joy. And, they go and spend that Bitcoin in their communities, and there's some kind of circular economy within that village and school. So, getting out there, if you do have it in mind to visit El Salvador, go out there and spend some sats. Absolutely. Exactly as Walker said. If you're a maximalist and you're in El Salvador, spend some sats, give some people some sats, let them see how it works. Because a lot of the time, the local people, they're set in their ways. They use US dollars, they receive US dollars. And it's a habit that's difficult to break until you have a reason to break it. And so we give them a reason. So Walker, Carla, I wanted to ask you, because you were tipping a lot of people in very different circumstances or different venues and whatnot. Were there any difficulties that you came across?
Yeah, biggest difficulty was honestly not on the person-to-person side. It was on the merchant interaction layer. So, I mean, from the moment we got off the plane, our first commercial interaction in El Salvador was a Bitcoin transaction with BitDriver 7. If you're looking for a driver that accepts Bitcoin in El Salvador,
He's wonderful.
He's on Twitter. Hit him up. He's lovely. If you're listening, Napoleon, thanks for everything. But he picked us up, and we had a great combo with him. Was able to pay him in Bitcoin for his services, no problem. Every other person to person P2P transaction that we did was completely unencumbered by any sort of issues. However, when we got to the merchant interaction layer, first trying to interact with the merchant at our hotel, the biggest problem was we couldn't pay the initial bill because there wasn't enough channel liquidity. I was using Moon Wallet at the time. Not a dig on Moon. I think the wallet is fantastic. Just that this is it's a problem, but it's a very solvably technical problem because it simply has to do with channel liquidity, establishing more pathways between the different providers. The people at the hotel, they were using Ibex Mercado. And so, I mean, I think that this is something where, Moon sets up a couple of channels with Ibex with ample liquidity, and you've got a problem that's, no longer a problem anymore. But at the person-to-person level, really no issues. One maybe would be that when we were at Jesus Pupuseria, you may remember we were trying to order some bread from a street vendor who had come by, and he didn't have any data left on his phone plan. And Carla knows a little bit more about kind of the structure of that, but I guess in El Salvador, a lot of the telecoms, they offer free social media services, certain social media apps
as part of packages.
Yeah, as part of the unlimited data on the phone package. But at this point, Bitcoin wallets are not included in that. So again, you have a problem, but it's one that's very solvable in a technical way, and fairly easily so.
And
or even government policy could write that immediately.
Definitely.
If I had to guess, I'd say President Bukele is probably a couple steps ahead of us on that one.
Yeah, he is. That's already being worked on. But also, just if Max is still listening, Max, make sure you go check your messages. Speaking of El Salvador, I also want to say in terms of that adoption, that's been something that we've been in Bitcoin for 11 years, and this has been something people have always focused on as merchants and people and individuals and wallets and stuff and that sort of thing. But I think one thing about El Salvador that is unique is the government adoption, the Treasury adoption, that it's on the balance sheet. And I think that's so much more important in my mind than the individual merchant adoption at this point, because of what that framing of being, the fuck you money. It really shows the fuck you money beyond any merchant adoption. Like the way that the immense amount of power that it gives a small country against huge multinational organization. Well, what do you call them? Like organizations like the IMF.
Transnational government.
Transnational. Yeah, like these shadow governments out in the open. But I think it's, I think that adoption is what, for me, when I look at El Salvador, is the most profound in terms of like where I am 11 years later. It's like, wow, this is way better than McDonald's using Bitcoin.
Yeah, just to give it a contrast, I'm in London, as many of you know. if I walked around to every service point at shops and restaurants and bars and asked if I could tip each of those people that served me in Bitcoin, there's no way I would even get half of the people to download a wallet to receive Bitcoin. Yet in El Salvador, almost everybody did, except for one person who was really quite a Luddite. Lovely person, but he was a Luddite. He just was resistant to technology. It wasn't a Bitcoin thing. That's the difference, that this policy from the top down, so the government adopting it, making it legal tender, and this enormous focus on Bitcoin raises the level of awareness such that the familiarity with Bitcoin is so ubiquitous that the notion of receiving Bitcoin as a tip was happily embraced. It was not looked upon skeptically as some kind of Ponzi, whereas we know that in a lot of developed countries, the UK, America, Australia, these places that I've been to, lived in and love, that there is a general perception still, because of their the relative stability of their currencies compared to other nations, that anything other than that is likely to be a Ponzi. And so they're fed this narrative of volatility, black markets, Silk Road, drugs, and whatever, that they're just so dated, really, these FUD angles. But in El Salvador, such is the level of acceptance that all you have to do is just suggest it, and perhaps a little bit of prodding about which wallet to download. But they're very happy to accept that. And the only difficulties we encountered, and as I've mentioned earlier, there needs to be a lot more investment in infrastructure, was sometimes we had technical difficulties with someone not having a data plan, or perhaps, I think at one point we were up in a place that didn't quite have the connectivity that we needed, or the Lightning network wasn't yet at a scale to accommodate didn't have liquidity in the pool. However, we did have a particularly good experience. Now, I was hoping to save this for later on, but Carlo and Walker, when we were on top of the volcano, you tried to do a transaction. Can you tell us about that?
We sure can. Well, after quite an arduous hike that we all survived, and
beautiful hike.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And my God, just quick sidebar, but the landscape in El Salvador is like something
unreal.
Else. I mean, it is. Please go there and see it for yourselves. You will not regret it. But yeah, we got up on top of this active volcano, staring down into this massive crater that's full of basically like acid at this point. And don't fall in.
And we had signal.
We had signal, and well, actually, technically, we meant to send a Lightning transaction, but it was so bright up on top of the mountain, we ended up sending on-chain. But the on-chain transaction arrived, and right while we were on top of the mountain, and then it was confirmed with 6 blocks by the time we got down to the car. So you can tell, about how long the hike was.
Yeah. So I guess a lot of people, they do have the perspective of, if I go to El Salvador, I'm going to be a tourist. What the hell is there to do? So let's start talking about some of the wonderful things that we got to experience in El Salvador. Do you want to start with your highlight, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Carla is the master planner, as you know well, Archie. So yeah, we stayed at two different hotels. Just we can speak to our personal experience, what we enjoyed. But the hotels we stayed at, Palo Verde and Puro Surf, both absolutely beautiful, lovely spots.
And both accepted Bitcoin.
Again, I mentioned that I wasn't able to complete the initial hotel payment because of Lightning liquidity. I was able to cash out my entire bar bill with Lightning, and that was, let's say, you probably remember, a pretty hefty bar tab anyway. So there was enough liquidity for that. But yeah, we went all around. Down in El Zonte itself, Jimbera was an amazing, host. He took us. There's plenty to do if you like to surf. We both were newbies to it, but both managed to get up thanks to our great coach, Jimbera. There is so much food to eat. We are people who really, really enjoy good food. And El Salvador is clearly a place where they take a lot of pride in the food that they make. And you can really, you can taste that. And it is impossible to eat with a bad view, it seems, in this country. No matter where you go, you can find a little spot even on the side of the road with a great view, great people inside, and killer food.
The ultimate highlight for me personally, though, was visiting the school and seeing how some things that we take for granted will literally make these kids' faces light up. So then when the stack trainers reached out to us about creating, a video, it was such a good opportunity. And like amazingly, over $6,000 were raised. That's over 1,000 students that can receive $5 on their new Bitcoin Beach or Chivo wallet. Like that's not immaterial. That's incredible.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible thing. You go down there and we didn't know what to expect going down. We went down there, we were going to be working down there a bit, going to be, relaxing a little bit and going to be trying to learn about Bitcoin. And amidst all of the, let's call them, quote, touristy things that we did, we got a chance to meet real people. And that was, I think it's a place you can go, you can relax, you can vacation, you can enjoy yourself. And you also have an opportunity like nowhere else to really, let's say, check your privilege, and see how other people live, see what Bitcoin is doing for them in a real way, not in your theoretical, pro or con way that whoever you are want to believe. You can see what's actually happening there, and so go there for the views and the beaches and the surfing and the food and whatever you want, but learn from the people there and learn from the experiences that you can have there.
Max and Stacy, you guys have been there for almost 1 year, and I know it's difficult to just pull out one highlight, but if someone was visiting for the first time, what would you recommend for them to go and do and see as a matter of beauty, for one, and number two, for Bitcoin?
Ironically, Max and I have not really been tourists there. We have been so busy, and it's like hard to describe what we do, but we've been super, super, super busy all day long for months on end. I would say, we've been able to see we drove out to Chalatenango, for example. So to go outside, everybody goes to Bitcoin Beach. That's part of your pilgrimage as a Bitcoiner. You have to go there and do that and take surf lessons from Chimbetta. If you are that privileged to be able to take a lesson with him. I was lucky and fortunate enough. Perhaps he's too busy these days, but I did stand up, I have to say, on the surfboard. And we drove through the countryside, so up to like Chalatenango, and you learn the history of the country as well. That was a area totally depopulated by the Civil War. That was more hit by the Civil War than, say, the gang wars. It's so beautiful. It's just like astounding. We have a solar mining farm, Bitcoin mining farm being built right now out there. We've had the chance to fly over in a helicopter and go see Conchagua and where Bitcoin City will be, and it's stunning. So we have not had a chance to actually go out to where Bitcoin City will be and go swimming and see it on the ground. But that's what I really want to do. And I have not been up to Santa Ana, the volcano, the big beautiful one that you see when you're landing. It's hard to miss that. You've arrived in San Salvador when you see it. But I've seen all the photos, and we've had friends with houses up there, and we've been invited to it, but we've been working too hard. And so I guess the biggest tourist attraction, I would say, is come to San Benito and wave to me and Max when you see us walking around.
Definitely a tourist attraction.
I like the actual city of San Salvador. So I like cities. I like visiting cities, and this is a city that's transforming in real time, and every week, every month, it's just being upgraded in a huge way. They just moved all of the street stalls into a huge covered marketplace that's doing really well. They're building a huge library right there in the center of the city, which it's going to be gorgeous. I think it's going to be done in less than a year. All the buildings in the center of the city are going to be, some of them are government buildings. I think they're going to be converted to startups, locations, and things like that. And this is really going to be an exciting place right there. And if you like cities, this is one that's right in the process. I remember back in New York in the 1970s, it was a total garbage. It had gone bankrupt. And then over the next 10 years, it had been transformed into a very vibrant place. This is what I'm seeing in San Salvador.
Oh, I want to follow up because, of course, Apopa. Soyapango and Ilopango are liberated areas, and they're super cute and beautiful. I was not prepared because I thought we were going into gang territory, and it was going to be like I thought the images that you have of like a horrible area, that it was going to be like that, but they're like really charming locations, really colorful shops, and all sorts of vibrancy there. So it's tourists should go there and visit that. I think every Bitcoiner should do that because yes, there's some beautiful hotels out in Bitcoin Beach, and there's some hotels, nice hotels in San Salvador. But I think if you see the entirety of the country and go meet all the people, to see the profound impact down to the foundation of what Bitcoin has done and helped, with the country, and President Bukele, of course, has done for the country.
Yeah, Ilopango has a beautiful lake, and the mayor of that town likes to take people out on his sailboat. I'm sure you can talk him into it.
Yeah, and the mayor of Ilopango is the first in El Salvador, by the way, to put Bitcoin on their town treasury as well.
Excellent. Roman, are you there?
Yes.
Roman, tell us, what is the one thing that a new visitor must do for beauty and also for Bitcoin? Two separate things.
Well, I think El Salvador, one of the things that people fall in love when they visit El Salvador is that you can do everything in one day. We used to say that because El Salvador is the smaller country in America. So you can be at the volcano in the morning, you can go in the city in the afternoon, and back to the beach in the same day, Just a few places, I think, in the world, you can do everything in one day. So that's one of the beauty that we have here. And definitely surf is it have been playing like a big role in our country. Tourism started from there, but now we have people who like hiking volcanoes, like waterfalls, lakes, beaches, cities, amazing colonial towns that you can visit in. Golf. I don't know if there are Bitcoiners that like to play golf. I know Max like to play golf, and we have good golf course, fishing tours. What else? We have many things here, and the weather is warm all year round. The water of the ocean is warm all year round. We have good food. I think it's not because I'm Salvadorian, but I think El Salvador have one of the most friendly people in the entire planet, and it's one of the biggest values that we have as a country. And so there are many things to do, El Salvador can accommodate everyone, and everyone is walking. There are like many adventures that you can do if you want to do everything. If you want to stay at the beach and do for a tour just for the day, you can do it, or you can move around. There's so many places to do. And so, yeah, I'm more than happy to give. They can reach out to us, and we will give all the information that you need. And also, you can, if you're coming, Walker was talking about Bit Drive. He goes by Napoleon too. Napoleon is leasing here. You can book your transfer from the airport to anywhere you want to go, and of course, you can pay with Bitcoin. So.
Yeah, thanks for that. Really appreciate it. Look, to give you guys, I'll be a little bit self-indulgent and give you my experience there. What really stood out for me that I've emphasized over and over again is the people and how ready they are to welcome you. That's not an exaggeration, okay? I know people always say that wherever they go, people warm and friendly. It's a cliche, but it is so true and so unexpectedly warm and friendly that I have to make that my absolute number one. Second of all, the weather is absolutely perfect. I was kind of worried that I was going in wet season, but all that meant was that, it rains in the evenings or at night. And we got a spectacular thunderstorm that I posted on my timeline. You might want to scroll that back 4 or 5 days to have a look at that. And it was beautiful. It really only rained twice in the 7 days that I was there. And it was at night when we were back at the hotel or somewhere out for dinner, having drinks and whatever. The food, the seafood is absolutely delicious, beyond anything you could expect. And particularly now we're all cost conscious, inflation's going up and all the rest of that. The value that you get for the quality of seafood that you will be served. I think Walker, he ordered a seafood soup, and my God, they couldn't have put any more seafood in there. It looks like they got everything from the ocean and put it in there. The food's amazing. The people are great. The locations I particularly like being able to sit somewhere, enjoy a view that's just totally captivating. And all along the coast, from where we stayed in El Zonte, Bitcoin Beach, all the way across, is just breathtaking. You're going to absolutely love that. But then furthermore, when you actually go inland, the forests are amazing. The mountains are so lush and covered in greenery. So I was not bothered at all that we were there in supposedly wet season, because the days were just perfect. 28, 32 degrees. I'm not sure what that translates into for our American friends, but you can look that up. It was just perfect warm days, not too hot that you could, sit in the sun for a few hours and worry about getting burnt to a crisp. It was fantastic.
One thing that people are surprised about, I know I was, is that like in some places in the U.S., all over the street, you'll find acorns. In El Salvador, you'll find mangoes. The mangoes are everywhere, and it's great. I mean, it's like I love mangoes. So there's a lot of mangoes everywhere in the dishes, fresh mangoes. And if you love mangoes, this is like the capital of mangoes.
Yeah, the
Best
fruit's amazing.
coffee ever.
The fruit's amazing. The watermelons are amazing. All the melons are amazing. I know a lot of people are interested in property investment in El Salvador. Even before they've been there, they're asking me about property investment. Listen, guys, El Zonte is premium property. If you're really interested in there, you better go now, because if you're thinking of waiting 4 or 5 years, forget about it. But if you're really interested in property, you've got to go now. It's premium location, it's premium beauty, and some of the views from, I guess you could call them cliffs, but they're probably more hilltops, are just absolutely spectacular in the morning. And sometimes you get a little bit of the sunset as well. But I think you'd see more of the sunset in some of the cooler months, which, it doesn't really get that cool there. What else? The coffee is spectacular. Perhaps not served always in the manner that you might be used to if you're a bit of a hipster and a coffee snob, but there's no doubting the quality of the coffee in El Salvador. You could do coffee trips to various plantations if if that interests you as well. Absolutely do that. We went on a hike up a volcano, and we couldn't stop enough times to take photographs, and we couldn't stop for long enough either, just because of the timing that we had to get to the top and back. It's absolutely breathtaking. And until you see how lush, how green, how spectacular it is to look across a valley to another volcano and then another volcano, just a layer of cloud right over the top of them. It's spectacular to see that. And then when you get to the top, of course, you've got this really acidic water in the volcano, in the mouth of the volcano, and it's a brilliant sort of turquoise green color. That's spectacular as well. You've got to do that. So that kind of wraps up my take and my highlights, as well as meeting Max and Stacy, and also the crypto couple and Roman as well. The people you spend time with are always the biggest highlight. I had a fantastic trip there. It's definitely on the agenda for me to return. I don't know when, but it's definitely on the agenda. And one of the things I'm really keen to see is the progress, because when I was there, the energy is palpable, the momentum is palpable. So what I want to see is actually experience that change. I want to go back there and see that the roads have been fixed up, It's a little bit busier in certain areas in the businesses. I want to see better infrastructure because I can see all those projects now. We can see the construction being undertaken, and I want to go back and actually notice. Oh, that's different. That's new. I can't wait to do that. And if you go to El Salvador anytime soon and make that a habit over the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, even 10 years, you're going to be able to experience. It's almost like a birth or rebirth of a nation. You're going to see this nation rise up, and you'll be able to document that in your photographs and the people that you meet too. So this is a really unique opportunity for us to do it. We've all got a stake as Bitcoiners, but also as humanitarians and people as well. We can share in that journey with a country that's been suppressed by international or transnational organizations from the IMF, World Bank, and all sorts of things, really. And they've had various internal turmoil as well. So you get to share in that journey. I can't wait to go back there and continue visiting and seeing El Salvador rise up. So do you guys have anything else to add before we call it a day?
It's Renaissance 2.0. It's the rebirth, as you mentioned. It's Renaissance 2.0. Come see it. It's like visiting Florence in the 15th century. You got to be there.
Very
Yeah.
good. Come on
And
down.
just adding something to the properties.
Go ahead, Roman. All right, Max, did you have anything to say then?
So for all of you asking for properties, El Salvador is one of the places that foreigners can own and sell properties, and we don't have property taxes. So that's one of the things that all of you should know.
Go ahead, Max. No.
No, just come on, everyone. It's worth a visit. It's only like 2 hours away from Miami. The airport's really easy to get through, very easy, and you're in.
Crypto couple, you're up.
Like us Bitcoiners love to say, don't trust, verify. So if you don't believe us, come down and see it for yourself.
As Carla would say, put your money where your memes are.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Look, I really appreciate you all coming onto my spaces, and even more for spending time with me in El Salvador. It was a true delight for me. The highlight of my trip were the people that I met and got to spend some time with. So thank you all for doing that, and thank you for coming on my spaces. For everybody else, put El Salvador on your agenda. At least look into it if you're not curious. And if you're already curious, just do it. Trust us. You'll see everything we're talking about now. It's not perfect, but it's moving in the right direction, and you're gonna get a taste of that energy that we're describing. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.